is Right to Life Radio with John Gerardi on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400, a production of the Right to Life of Central California. And now, here's your host, John Gerardi.
It's amazing the things that are priorities and the things that are not priorities for our illustrious California state legislature. In the midst of a massive public health crisis, the California legislature has basically said, we don't need to have any input on this. We don't need to pass laws about it.
Yep.
We're not going to be the ones setting the standards for things. We're not going to be the ones deciding whether schools open or close. We're not going to be the ones deciding whether businesses should open or close. We're not going to be the ones deciding restaurants should open or close. No. We're going to cede all of that to the governor. And meanwhile, we're going to focus on the very important question of making sure that nurse practitioners can perform abortions without a doctor supervising them. This is Right to Life Radio. I am John Gerardi, as the Deep Voice Man said. Joining me is the aforementioned Deep Voice Man, Mr. Jonathan Keller from the California Family Council. What's up, Jonathan?
Howdy. I always feel whenever I'm on and I listen to my unnaturally deep voice on the intro, I feel like I have to...
Who is that handsome
I
devil?
have to continue the charade for the rest of the show. No, that's not my real voice. So
there you go. So we always welcome having Jonathan Keller on. Also welcome are all of these lovely people. For those of you watching the Facebook Live video, and if you're listening to this on Saturday mornings, you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/righttolifeca, and you can watch the video of the show. I'm holding here in my hands
my formerly nicotine-stained fingers,
as Rush Limbaugh says. I'm holding in my hands a big stack of more 300 Club signups. More people signing up for our 300 Club. This is our fundraising drive. If you want to support Right to Life of Central California, we have a fun way to do it. It's called the 300 Club. The idea is for less than $1 a day, $300 a year, $25 a month. Jonathan,
yes.
You've got Disney Plus, don't you?
I do, as a matter of fact.
Do you have Hulu?
I do, as a matter of fact.
Do you have Netflix?
I do.
Those are sapping more than $25 a month from your credit card, aren't they?
You've convicted me. And actually, I was thinking about this last week because Julia and I were getting ready to rejigger some of our giving for the summer and everything. And we've been shifting stuff around, setting up some auto pay and everything. And I was realizing, every time I go on Right to Life Radio with John and he gives his 300 Club pitch, I'm like kind of quietly like
assessing your own how many streaming services you have and whether you actually really use them.
I'm like that gif of Jordan Peele that you see where he's just like looking and it's just sweat is just pouring down his face. I'm like
So anyway, if you have, I'm not going to name any names or point any fingers, but if you have,
I'm not going to wave a stack of envelopes at anybody in the room.
If you have, I'm not pointing any fingers. But if your name rhymes with Bonathan Keller,
that's right,
and you have a bunch of streaming services that you don't even really watch all the time that are sapping more than $25 a month from your credit card, think about donating to the 300 Club. You can go to our website, rtlcc.org. There's the 300 Club button right at the top there, the blue button. You click on that, and you can set it up. You can give $25 a month. You can send in $300 a year. You can set up an auto pay, whatever you want. And if everyone in the sound of my voice listening to this were to do that, we would practically not need any fundraisers at all. So as I do this, I'm going to, for the start of the next two segments on the show, I'm going to read off some of the names, including some very illustrious and famous names of people who have signed up for our 300 Club just as a thank you and as a public acknowledgement. So we'll talk about that later in the show. All right. I want to talk about SB 1237. You may be saying, what the heck is that random combination of letters and numbers? That is Senate Bill 1237. It's before the California State Legislature right now. As we said in the open, the California Legislature has delegated all of its coronavirus lawmaking responsibilities to the governor through the emergency declaration. Basically, Governor Newsom can write and change laws as he wants just through executive orders for anything that relates to coronavirus, whether it's school openings, school closures, businesses, restaurants, whatever. And meanwhile, the state legislature continues its obsession with social engineering and radical social programs. So the thing they're on with right now is abortion and nurse practitioners doing abortions. So This was when did it start? The California first started letting nurse practitioner midwives do abortion. That was about 5 years ago.
It was at least
2015.
I actually think it goes back a little bit earlier. The initial pilot program, I think, may go back as early as 2012 or 2013.
Okay,
we had in a bygone era, we actually had interviewed here in this very studio the predecessor of Jim Patterson, Assemblywoman Linda Halderman, who is a doctor.
Halderman. Yeah, we love Dr. Halderman.
She's fantastic.
My mom is buddies with her.
Oh, so. Yeah, she's great. And she came in and talked about the dangers of these types of bills where California was essentially trying to blaze a trail and allow deregulation of abortion by just saying, well, it's just a test program. UCSF, we want to see what happens.
It's never just a test.
It's just a test. We just want to let nurse practitioners, certified nurse midwives,
a test with millions of dollars behind it and a predetermined outcome.
We just want to see what happens. Can we do more abortions? I mean, is abortion more accessible? If we allow all of these people who are not OBGYNs to perform first trimester abortion procedures.
Right. So what California did was California has a program for nurse practitioner midwives. And if you're a nurse practitioner in California, you get licensed as a nurse practitioner midwife. You receive a certain amount of doctor oversight, and you're able to deliver babies. California, though, I think is maybe the only state in the union that allows nurse practitioner midwives, non-doctors, to perform surgical abortions. So this is not pill abortions. This is not abortion via pill. This is not, just having a nurse practitioner sit there while a patient takes the pill. And by that, I don't mean the morning after pill. I mean the abortion pill at up to 10 weeks of pregnancy, a pill to basically induce an artificial miscarriage. It's not that. This is a nurse practitioner doing a surgical D&E abortion. Okay, a non-doctor performing a surgical abortion. So that was initially approved. Now, after that practice has been more and more established, we have SB 1237. And this bill is basically, it's coming in under the disguise of being focused on midwifery, on midwives, okay? Basically, the idea is we're proposing this so that nurse practitioner midwives can operate, can do what they do, can provide prenatal care without having constant, doctor supervision, without a doctor constantly looking over his or her shoulder. Are there dude midwives?
Yeah, mid dudes,
mid husbands. I've literally never heard of one.
Mid husbandry.
Huh?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Why is midwifery?
I would assume that
mid husbandry is like. Working
John,
with horses and stuff, isn't it?
Look.
Anyway.
In today's modern era, you can be a midwife if you want to be.
That's true.
If you identify as a midwife, you can be a midwife.
Yeah, it gets harder. Pope Francis actually gave a speech about this once, and he talked about how the Italian word for midwife is comadre, which, co-mother, literally. So that would be even more difficult in Italy. So anyway, So you have this practice of midwives supervising, of midwives just delivering babies.
Yes.
And this bill, SB 1237, comes in under the guise of just saying, let midwives do their thing. This amount of doctor oversight is unnecessary. Let these midwives do their thing. But oddly enough, who is the chief sponsor of this bill, which is purportedly about midwives and their ability to deliver babies without excessive doctor oversight? The chief sponsor of the bill is none other than NARAL, the National Abortion Rights Advocacy
Action League.
League. I could never remember what
NARAL Pro-Choice California.
NARAL Pro-Choice California.
And John, let me just say, I think it is conceivable that, no pun intended, it is conceivable that there is a bill that NARAL would support that maybe California Family Council might support and that Right to Life might support. Like, I would say this. If this bill, all it did was, hey, we think that more women in the state of California should be able to access midwifery services.
Yes.
I might have shared this on a previous podcast. I know I shared it on mine. So, but in case you didn't hear it, my wife and I, we had a baby in April. I think like 36 hours before John and his wife did.
We timed it out that way.
It was very precise. But we actually had the baby at home with the assistance of a midwife. And I was talking to our midwife, and she was saying, yeah, you know what? It's really kind of frustrating. California, ironically, has some of the most restrictive and onerous regulations of midwifery services. You'd think that California being progressive, they would have all these new types of ways that people could, women should have rights to be able to have babies the way they want to have babies.
Sure.
I would be totally in favor of bringing California law into compliance or into line with many of these other states around the country. Florida, for example, I mean, from what I've heard, has very good laws on midwifery. If NARAL said, hey, this is a bill that we support to modernize and streamline our laws, I would be like, hey, you know what? I think this is a good law. I don't endorse probably anything else NARAL does, but this one law I could support.
Yeah. The problem is, the fly in the ointment is,
if we did that, we would also have to make sure that we change the regulations so that our abortion laws are also in line with the state of Florida and other places.
Right.
Because it's this total Trojan horse.
Yeah. That's the thing. NARAL, and that's why we were alerted to it. NARAL doesn't give a crap about midwifery. They don't care about midwives. They care about abortion. They're not the National Midwives' Rights Action League. They're the National Abortion Rights Action League. They don't care about midwives. And for them to get into this by saying, oh, well, this is a really important thing for expanding prenatal healthcare services to women. Nonsense. That's total stuff that I can't say on this, family program because of the FCC. The FCC won't me. So anyway. So it's total baloney that they are claiming, oh, this is about our deep commitment at NARAL to, reproductive access. No, it's not. It's not about reproductive access. It's about abortion access. It's because abortion clinics have a hard time getting doctors to do surgical abortions. Newsflash. Most people, when they dream about being an OB, they dream about being an OB because they want to deliver babies. They don't want to kill babies through second and third trimester abortions when you can see like a baby that has arms and legs and fingers and toes and a head.
I've met almost nobody. Most of the people that I've talked to who have met people that are in medical school regard abortionists as kind of the
dirty secret nobody wants to talk about, and a lot of people don't want to get involved with.
The third tier people who, it reminds me of, I hate to even joke about it because it's such a serious thing, but it reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where they're talking about Jerry is making all the anti-dentist jokes.
Oh, yeah, the anti-dentite.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and he goes, what they call a doctor who can't, flunks out of medical school? A dentist.
Yeah.
Well,
which we do not think that way.
No, we don't think that. We have good dentist friends and supporters. Yes. But that is, from what I have heard, that is, in a lot of cases, the truth about abortion.
I know some doctors who are related to me in a familial capacity.
Yes.
Perhaps one could say a paternal and maternal capacity.
Yes.
Who have made comments about abortion doctors that they are, and I quote, the bottom of the barrel.
Yep.
And there aren't a lot of doctors who want to do it, and the only reason NARAL cares about this is they want a better supply of people who can do surgical abortions. And if they can get more nurse practitioners to do it, that increases their supply. That's the only reason they care about this. So SB 1237, no on SB 1237. Let's encourage our legislators to vote no. When we come back, I'm going to talk about ways to interact with the state capitol and how to magnify your voice. We'll talk about that next. This is Right to Life Radio, Power Talk, 96.7 AM 1400, rtlcc.org. Got my walls of sound confused. Thank you so much for listening to Right to Life Radio. All right, we're going to do this real quick. So we've got all these new people who've signed up for the 300 Club. If you want to sign up, the 300 Club is a way to support Right to Life of Central California and our educational work, our outreach work, etc. Go to rtlcc.org. Here are the names of the people who have signed up to join us. We've got Stephen and Judy Shabazian. Thank you, Stephen and Judy. We got the Coelho family. Thank you so much, John and Veronica Coelho. We got Barbara Fletcher. Thank you, Barbara.
Hey.
So sweet of you for joining. Let's see. We got here Carl Euland. Thanks, Carl. Hope you enjoyed the Notre Dame game. Carl Euland stayed at my parents' old condo, went to a Notre Dame game with us.
Good stuff.
Gregory Warmerdam of the famous Flying Warmerdam brothers. I appreciate it, Gregory. The greatest pole vaulting family in the San Joaquin Valley. And some would say the world.
That's a real anecdote?
Yeah, the Warmerdams are like famous track and field athletes. They're like,
wow.
Yeah, their dad was like a famous, I think he was an Olympian, and all the Warmerdams are
I'm impressed.
Just really good track and field athletes. So there you go. Chrissy Winslow, thank you so much, Miss Chrissy. Karen Spencer, thanks so much, Karen. That's sweet of you. Dick and Karen, always love them. Christina Ledak, thank you so much, Christina. We got the Torres family. What names do we have on there? This is Maria Torres. Thank you, Maria, from Fireball. Thank you so much for supporting us. Patty Lametti, as always. Patty Lametti's longtime 300 Club member, Bright to Life board member, and the most famous name from this envelope, none other than the Most Reverend Joseph Brennan, the Bishop of the Diocese of Fresno, signed up for the 300 Club. Bishop Brennan, you the man. We ride and die with Bishop Brennan. So anyway,
I have yet to meet him. It's just one of those things where I've seen him before at different functions, but I haven't actually met him.
Well, I've met him several times, and he's a pretty great dude. So anyway, thank you, Bishop Brennan. Thank you to all of you who've signed up for the 300 Club. All right. I don't know that I'll get through this whole thing right here, but I want to make a point. Jonathan and I have been talking about SB 1237, Senate Bill 1237. This is a bad bill before the California State Legislature. It removes certain oversight protections for nurse practitioner midwives, which in general, I don't know that we would have a problem with. I don't really have very strong opinions necessarily about midwife practice. It seems that California is pretty restrictive when it comes to midwives, and that's fine if midwives have less restrictions in ways that make California a little more similar to other states. I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem is when a bill is presented as being about midwives, but actually its chief sponsor is NARAL, Pro-Choice California, which NARAL is the National Abortion Rights Advocacy Action League.
Yep.
And they don't really care about midwives. They care about abortion. And what they want is abortion to be, they want more people who are able to do surgical abortions, and the reason why they want less doctor oversight from nurse practitioner midwives is because they can perform abortions
John,
in California.
Let me correct you, because I went to their website right now, which is prochoicecalifornia.org, NARAL Pro-Choice California, and it says expand access to maternal health care. Tell your legislator to support SB 1237, the Justice and Equity in Maternity Care Act.
Yes, because maternal health care is what they really care about. Again, let's note their name is not the National Maternity Health Care Rights Action League. It's the National Abortion Rights Action League.
Yep.
Yeah, so this was an incredibly deceptive bill, and it's something that we should all gather together to fight against and contact our legislators to urge them to vote no on it. Unfortunately, it's always an uphill battle here in California to fight against pro-choice legislation, because basically the pro-choice majority has 3/4 of the seats in both houses of the legislature, and they have the governor. But this is, I think, another example of just the bizarre lack of priorities, the bizarre prioritization of these extreme social policies at the expense of actual good governance. I think it's a fruit of California being a year-round legislature. Okay, a lot of states, their legislature meets for 1 month and then they're done for 2 years. Okay, they meet for 1 month, they pass a 2-year budget, they pass 1 or 2 other laws, and that's it. It's a part-time job. It's not, it's not a year-round thing. California legislators, it's a year-round job. They get a full-time salary plus a really nice per diem. And they've got all this time all year round to work on legislation, and they think they should radically socially engineer things. That, I think, is part of it. All right, when we come back, I'm going to dig into how you can make your voice more than just one single voice when it comes to state legislation. That's coming up next. Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. Support the 300 Club. 300 Club is the club for those of you who want to give $25 a month. That's $300 a year to support Right to Life of Central California. If you've got some streaming services that you don't really watch very often that are sapping $25 a month from your credit card, why are you doing that? Cancel those streaming services and instead give to a great cause. So I want to read and acknowledge some of the people who are signing up for the 300 Club. Barry Warmerdam, another one of the Flying Warmerdam brothers. We appreciate you, Barry, who's moved off to Texas. Our former board chair, Barry Warmerdam. Oh. Ruben Hernandez, thank you so much. Edward Taglioni, the Schmieder family. Thank you to the Schmieders. Pat Johnson, longtime Right to Life board member. Patricia Johnson, thank you so much. Ernest Forden, thank you so much. Shirley Mitchell. Senior, Rosa Alvarenga, thank you so much, Rosa. The Diener family, Marianne Contreras, Mark Schwarm, Clinton Kelly Haskell.
Hey,
love the Haskells. Clint Haskell, oddly enough, the first person I ever told that we were expecting our son Jack because he happened to drive by the office to pick up something. It was like the day after Holly found out we were expecting, and I knew Clint would not tell anyone that I knew.
Not tell us all.
So just because
That's
I
great.
only sort of know him. So anyway, I have that weird connection with Clint Haskell.
Not even his mother-in-law. I'm impressed that he kept it a secret.
Actually, that could have gone disastrously.
That's true.
If Karen had found out about it, she probably would have.
Katie barred the door.
Yeah, there you go. And then James Tazy, Bernadette Tazy's brother, seminarian for the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fresno.
I had forgotten that he was in seminary. How cool.
There you go. Well, we can write a book about what you don't know. Anyway, thank you so much to all of you for signing up for the 300 Club. It is an honor to have so many of you support us. All right.
John, I think what would be fun would be to do like a because, we're on Facebook Live. We could do like an exchange where we could be persuaded to say funny words like midwifery. In exchange for joining the 300 Club.
Yeah, if you want me to say something really weird or embarrassing, like FCC compliant.
Yes.
But,
midwifery.
We're happy to say something stupid in exchange for you contributing to Right to Life.
Mid-husbandry, midwifery.
There you go.
And I can say, John, we are willing to say those words even though neither of us are individuals with a cervix.
There you go. Exactly. Yes, this is the way CNN, by the way, is reporting on women. They're now referring to them as persons with a cervix.
Individuals with a cervix will need regular examinations.
Exactly. All right.
Okay.
I want to get to... Now, this is a topic that I talked about this past Saturday. I went to a pro-life camp in Ventura, California, that was socially distanced.
I was so jealous. I saw.
Yeah, I got Bishop Barron was there. This was run by the Right to Life League of Los Angeles and their group Vox Vitae, which has a wonderful pro-life summer camp. It's usually a week-long camp, but this time it was one day. And I was giving a talk to these teenagers about how to make your voice heard in politics, in state politics. So I want to give a sort of a condensed version of that for you, my radio audience, because California state politics is something that a lot of people don't know much about. They don't follow it very closely. They don't realize how extreme and radical the California state legislature is, particularly on abortion questions. And yet this stuff has a huge impact. It is the law that governs all 40 million of us who, for some dumb reason, live in this state. Because of our connections to family and friends, because we don't make very sound tax and financial decisions. So, how do you make your voice be multiplied? Okay, so the first thing people should understand is how laws are made for the state of California in our state legislature. Now, all of you listening at home, probably most of you remember the bill sitting on Capitol Hill in Schoolhouse Rock and how a law is made at the U.S. Congress. Get a majority in the House of Representatives, a majority of the Senate, they vote on something, and then it goes to the desk of the president, and he signs it into law.
Well, I'm just a bill.
Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, the method for a bill to become a law in California is very, very similar. Very analogous process. Instead of the House of Representatives, in California, we have the State Assembly. Instead of the United States Senate, we have the California State Senate. Was that redundant?
Instead of the federal Senate,
the United States Senate, we have the California State Senate. There we go. Okay. And instead of the president of the United States, you have the governor of California. So for for something to become a California state law, it has to be passed by a majority in the Assembly, a majority in the state Senate, and the governor signs it into law. And that's how it becomes a law in California. Or the California Supreme Court just makes something up and imposes it on you. But that's also very similar to the federal government. Yeah, that's also similar to the U.S. Supreme Court with decisions like Roe v. Wade. Anyway, so it's a very similar process. So the first thing to understand is that is how the political process works in California. It's very similar. All of you listening to this in California, you have a state assembly member who represents you. You have a state senator who represents you. Do you know their names? You should. Now, if you want to know their names, the best way to do it is simply Google, who is my California state representative? I'm going to do this live on air. Who is my California state representative? Okay. And the first thing you find is a website called findyourrep.legislature.ca.gov. Find your California representative. Now, let's note, this is different from your representative in the United States House of Representatives. Okay. So you have one representative who represents you in the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. But then you have two representatives who represent you at the California state capitol. One is your assembly member and one is your state senator. And that's different also from your United States senators, okay? Everyone listening has everyone in California has two U.S. senators, Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein. Everyone has one. Yeah. All right. Everyone has one member of the U.S. House of Representatives who represents them. My U.S. House of Representatives representative is Devin Nunes. I live in Clovis. Devin Nunes is my representative. Jonathan Keller's representative is Jim Costa. Jonathan lives in Fresno, in a particular part of Fresno that Costa represents.
Hey, just don't demean it. It's a part, not a particular part. It's just a part of Fresno.
It's just that it depends where you live in Fresno. Some parts of Fresno are represented by Nunes. Some parts are represented by Costa.
Just because I'm represented by the Portuguese assembly member that is not Devin Nunes. I mean,
yeah.
The other one.
There are so many Portuguese people who represent us in Congress. Back when Valadeo was in Congress, you had Costa, Nunes, Valadeo. It was like this total takeover.
And then before the 2010 redistricting, we had Richard Pombo, who was also in this general area.
And Johnny Teixeira, who ran once. He's Portuguese.
Oh, Johnny Teixeira ran more than once.
Ran more than once. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, so.
Anyway.
Okay. So,
sorry, Portuguese digression.
So you have a member who represents you in the U.S. House of Representatives. These are the people who represent you in Sacramento, your assembly member and your state senator. Okay? So if you click on this website, findyourrep.legislature.ca.gov. It's a very simple website. You just put in your address, and then you hit the locate button. Okay? So I'm going to type in Right to Life's address, 1742 East Griffith Way, Fresno, 93726. Locate. Who are our representatives? Well, this is actually surprising. I did not even realize this. So our assembly member is Jim Patterson.
Hey.
I did not know. I thought it was Joaquin Arambula who represented us over here, but apparently it's Jim Patterson. So Jim Patterson is our state assembly member, and Senator Andreas Borges is our state senator. Okay? And then it has a link to their website. So here's the point I make about magnifying your voice. And knowing this stuff, knowing who your legislators are, is a big way to help magnify your voice, to make your voice have the effect of hundreds of voices. What do I mean by that? Okay. A lot of people in this country, in this state, don't vote. They basically have no voice. Many people in this state vote. If you vote, you have at least one voice. You have made the impact of one person by voting. Now, there are some people who are really into politics and really study it hard and dig into all the ballot initiatives and things, and they talk with their friends, and maybe they email people, and they talk with people about stuff and influence other people to vote the way they do. Those people might have the weight of 5 votes or 10 votes, however many votes you wind up influencing. Sharon Girardi is like that. Dr. Sharon Girardi.
Yep.
She's like that. She got a lot of people who call her about stuff.
Influencers. Tipping point. But magnifying people.
But now we get to the question of writing and calling your assembly member and state senator. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, I don't want to call anybody. Oh, I don't want to write to my assembly member. Oh, I don't want to write to my state senator. It's really not that hard. You just look up their Sacramento phone number. It begins with a 916. You give them a call and you say, look, I don't like Senate Bill 1237. I'm a constituent. I live in your district. I would like you to vote no on it. That's all you got to do. It literally takes a minute, a literal minute, 60 seconds. It doesn't take a lot.
No, you don't have to hop in the car, drive 3 hours to the Capitol.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
you can do
very
that.
simple. You
And
can do
we'd
that.
love for you to do that, but
Yeah.
don't ignore the easy thing just because it's easy.
Right. Your act of picking up the phone and calling your assembly member or calling your state senator and letting them know, hey, I live in your district, I'm a constituent, I don't like this bill, and I would like you to vote no on it. That simple act results in your voice being worth, what would you say, Jonathan, at least 100 voices?
Oh, yeah.
1,000 voices? Because basically the way these, I mean, you can speak on this better.
No, well, my coworker Greg Burt, who works for us at California Family Council, when he was working in the legislature, he would tell me that they would essentially have this. It's not a exact science, but it was a rough thing of, look, if we get an email, okay, well, that represents X number of people because it's real easy to forward on an email or do automated message. That maybe represents 10 people or 100 people in our district. Well, but okay, then if we get a handwritten letter, okay, well, that's instead of 10 people, that's maybe 50 people. And then, well, okay, if it's a phone call, shoot, that's worth maybe 100 people or more.
Right. Because if someone has taken the time to call, it means that person, it's not just that one person who's upset. It probably means there's a substantial group of people who are upset. This is just the one person who happened to call. So by you calling, it's not just one voice that you have. You actually have magnified your voice to the point where this member of the Assembly or the Senate is like, this is like 100 people are upset at this.
Yep.
Why would all these people be calling otherwise if it weren't for the fact that a significant percentage of my electorate is really ticked off about it?
And it forces them to kind of do a double check and say, okay, if I take this action and the only people I'm hearing from, pro or con, are the lobbyists inside my building, inside the Capitol building, okay, well, I know that my district obviously doesn't care about this one way or the other.
Sure.
I haven't had anybody from my district come and oppose it or support it. So I could, on the one hand, say, I don't care. It is a neutral issue to me. And I personally, on a personal level, not only do my constituents not care about it, but I don't care about it. So what the heck?
I'll just take the easy way out.
I'll take the easy way out.
I'll just do what more lobbyists want me to do. I'll do what my party tells me to do. I'll do whatever.
Yeah. And I have heard this, John, with many politicians. I think sometimes President Trump gets attacked with this, but in reality, I think this is true of almost every politician. Very often, politicians will agree with the last person they spoke with. And
that is almost certainly true.
And that's why it's really important that you be
the last person that was spoken to,
or at least a preponderance of the last people they spoke with.
Right. And so, and this is a point that I make. Obviously, state politics is not super sexy. I mean, God forbid if it were. That would be just an absolute nightmare. I don't want any politics to be sexy, frankly. It's not something that's covered on Fox News. You're not going to hear about it on like Rush Limbaugh or anything because those are national outlets. They're not going to focus on state issues. The newspaper does even its job of covering this stuff. It's not super extensive. There aren't a ton of fora for finding out about state political issues. But to be engaged in state politics to the simple point of picking up a phone and dialing a phone number. It's such a simple thing to do. It's such an easy thing to do. And it multiplies your voice by hundreds. It's an incredibly important thing to do, and it's something I really encourage more people to do, especially if you are a pro-life person who lives in the district of someone who's pro-choice. It's an incredibly, critically important thing to do. We'll be back with more on this on Right to Life Radio. So, I want to talk about, as we close out the show today, and thank you all so much for listening. Thank you so much for those of you who have donated and signed up for the 300 Club, rtlcc.org. Click that blue button at the top, sign up for our 300 Club, $300 a year, $25 a month. A great, simple, not super break-the-banky way to support Right to Life of Central California. Less than $1 a day. Supports all of our work. I want to talk about what happened in Washington, D.C. last week, where a group of pro-life protesters, sidewalk advocate folks, and this is a group of people regularly led by our friend, Michael New.
Yes.
Michael New, who's a researcher and a professor at the Catholic University of America, does a lot of work with the Charlotte Lozier Institute, does a lot of statistical analysis of the impact of pro-life laws.
And I just have to say, kind of a rock star hero, becoming more and more, because you talk with him, I think he would be fair to say he's a little bit nerdy. He's a research professor.
Of course.
But
he's supposed to be.
But he goes out almost every weekend and is praying in front of the abortion clinic and sidewalk counseling.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's a really good guy.
Good
He's
on
really
you, Dr.
good guy.
New.
Yeah, and I got to meet him at the Vida Institute in 2018 conference that Notre Dame hosts, and he's a frequent contributor there. So
someone like that has time to go out and pray in front of an abortion clinic. I mean, what the heck excuse do the rest of us have?
Exactly. So Michael New and his group are out there sidewalk counseling, and this young man started writing on the sidewalk with chalk, "Black unborn lives matter." Okay. Now,
So like Black Lives Matter, like the most popular phrase in the last 3 months, but you just
extending it to the unborn.
Extending
it to the unborn. Now, this is not an unprecedented act of violent protest. Various protesters in Washington, D.C. had asked and received permission from the District of Columbia, from their city government, to write "defund the police" in the middle of the street. I don't know if it was actually Pennsylvania Avenue, like right in front of the White House or something like that. Anyway, to write in big, huge block letters with paint in the middle of a busy street in the District of Columbia, "defund the police." They asked the city allowed it. The city itself had written some messages, had written "Black Lives Matter," I think, on Pennsylvania Avenue right in front of the White House. That was speech by the city. But they then allowed other protesters to write other messages like "defund the police." So basically what the city is doing is saying our streets are a forum for expression.
Public forum.
Public forum for expression. We're opening this up. And if they're doing that, they have to respect the First Amendment. They can't favor some viewpoints and oppose others. Well, this little group of pro-lifers asked for, and they claim that they got a permit from the city to write, not with paint in the middle of the street, but to write with sidewalk chalk on a sidewalk the phrase "Black unborn lives matter." Now, I would say, even if these people did not have a permit from the city to write this in sidewalk chalk, frankly, I don't know that you need a permit other than the First Amendment to write something with sidewalk chalk. I mean, like, I can understand the city being opposed to someone using graffiti to write messages on the sidewalk.
Sure.
But I don't know that an inherently non-permanent form of expression like sidewalk chalk is ever properly regulated. These young men got arrested and cited by D.C. police for this act. This is, if they actually got a permit for this is such a blatant violation of their First Amendment rights that this is a slam dunk. And even so, shame on that D.C. police officer for arresting someone for something so trivial as writing with sidewalk chalk. Okay, this wasn't graffiti, this was sidewalk chalk. I mean, it's the most absurd thing I've ever seen, and it shows that the powers that be, it's not about free speech, it's about favored speech and favoring the certain expression of speech that liberalism approves of.
As Seinfeld attorney Jackie Childs would say, it's outrageous, egregious, preposterous.
Outrageous. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for bringing up Jackie Childs. Well, folks, that's going to do it for us for this week. Frank Sinatra's going to sing us out for the Old Italian Man segment. We might bring the Old Italian Man full-on segment back, so stay tuned for that. This has been Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400 and the iHeartRadio app, rtlcc.org.